Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you how to make thank you cards for essential workers using the delivery and quarantine digital stamps that were just released from the greeting farm. It is super easy, so let's go ahead and get started. To start, I'm going to open up Spark Post. So this is an Adobe program, and I am going to hit the plus button to start a new project, and it's going to ask you, what do you want to start with? I want to start with my files, so I'm going to click that, and that's going to pull me up to all these great little digital images that I downloaded from the greeting farm. And for digital designs, you work backwards to front. So the image that I want in the back of the scene, I'm going to put first, so that's the truck. And now I'm going to just change the background color. I'm going to get rid of that little text there just by deleting it, and then choose color and then basics. And now we have a white background. And next I am going to add another image. So hit add image, and it's going to say from where, from files. So I'm going to click that. And then I'm going to pick my next image, which is going to be this little delivery Ian boy. And now I'm just going to place that. I'm just going to drag it with my finger. If you want to make it larger or smaller, you just drag on those little green circles. And next, I'm going to add my next image, go to files, and I'm going to choose the bread. So I need to rotate it a little bit and make it smaller. So I'm just going to use my finger to make it smaller. I'm going to toggle it to the side. And then when I get just the perfect placement, I'll kind of stop fiddling around with it. So that looks good to me. And now I will go on to add our next image. So I'm going to hit add image from files. And then I'm going to select, let's see, which one should I pick here? Okay, the little boxes. So now the boxes pop up. I'm going to move them where I want them just by touching them with my finger. And again, I can make them as large or small as I want by toggling those little green circles. I'm going to add another image. This time, let's add the milk carton. I want the milk carton to sit right on top of the boxes, so I'm going to get it to the right size and then just put it right over. So when you work back to front, you can put images over other images. So this way it looks like that milk carton is sitting right on top, and we don't see the little box behind anymore. Okay, so for our next image, I'm going to click add again, add image from my files, and let's pick this little grocer. Now he's pointed in the wrong direction, so watch what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to make him smaller, I'm going to move him down a little, and now I'm going to hit crop, and then I'm going to hit adjust, and then I'm going to flip him. So now he's facing in the right direction. That looks good to me. Now let's see, let's add some more images. I'm going to hit add again. Oh, I guess I'm going to make our little delivery guy in the front a little bit bigger. So just so that he matches better with our little grocer. Now I'm going to hit add. And now let's see what we're going to select this time. Toilet paper. Yes. What is a quarantine without a toilet paper delivery? So I'm just going to size it by using those little green circles on the corners, place it where I want it. And that looks good. Yeah, now I'm just playing around. Do I want it closer to the boxes? And now we're going to add our sentiment. So I'm going to click add image, files, and I'm going to pick thanks for delivering. And so if you want, you could keep the sentiment right there, right on top. That's one look. You could also move it around to the side, make it smaller, place it exactly where you like. And I think that looks good. So now I am going to save our file, and then we can move on to the next step. And to save it, you just close out of the program. That's all you have to do. Next step, I've moved to my computer, and I'm going to download the image from SparkPost onto my computer so I can then resize it to print and then print. Okay, so it's downloaded. I have pulled it up, and now the scale is set to 55%. So you want to change that to 35% to make it an A2 size card size here. So I've done that, and now I'm just going to click print. And this is what it looks like. I have printed directly from my printer onto a sheet of Express It blending card, and then I've cut it down to 4¼ by 5½. And now we get to color this adorable little digital scene that we've built. So I'm going to start by just filling in the ground area with some T2, just so I can tell where the ground ends and the sky begins. And then we're going to move on to adding a really soft pastel rainbow to the background. So I'm using RV00 for the pink shade here, and I'm just making a nice little pink curve behind our delivery truck. And then I'm going to add some R30 right under it. So that's a real nice peachy tone, just beautiful for a soft pastel rainbow. And then I'm going to add in some YR000 for our next shade in the rainbow, and then Y000. And you can use any colors that you have. If you want a more bold rainbow, that's fine. Just use whatever light colors that you have, or bold, depending on what you want. I'm making it kind of a light pastel background because I want the foreground of the scene to really stand out. So I'm going to use really bright and bold colors in the front of the scene, also using a rainbow theme as well. So we have our pastel rainbow in the background, and then all the images in the front are going to be colored in some pretty bold rainbow colors, just so that it's a really pretty, vibrant scene. And I think it just matches the feel of the card perfectly, because these delivery people, these essential workers, are really making our lives, so much safer during these quarantine times. So anything we can do to show our appreciation to them, I think the better. So for our delivery truck, I'm going to make it red and white. So the trailer part of the truck is going to be white, and then the front of the truck will be red. So I'm using some cool grays for the trailer. I use C5 as my darkest, and then all the way down to C00 for the lightest. And I'm just coloring in the highlights now in our trailer, and I'm using YR12 for that. And I'm just noting where I want the lightest part to be, and then we are going to start working darkest to lightest. So R39 for our darkest red tone, and that's going to go wherever we want it to look like. There's the body of the truck is kind of denting inwards, so we're going to be able to make those little valleys in the metal with the darker contouring. And then we're going to go in with R29 and start building the color towards the lighter area. So I'm just going to follow the little guide that I drew with my darker marker and just add a little bit of an outline around them with R29. And then I'm going to build inwards with the R24 and cover up almost all of that YR12, just so that the YR12 gives a nice little glow to the lightest parts of the truck. And then once we're done with that, we're going to go and deepen our contouring a little bit more with the R39. So I'm just going to deepen up the parts that look like they need a little more shading, and then blend a little bit, and then just fix up that little spot with my colorless blender. And now for the rear view mirrors, I'm going to make them look like they're metal. So I'm using a base of T3 and then T6 for the contrasting shade or the contouring, and then blending it inwards with a T4, and then T1 in the very center. And then for the grille on the truck, or the fender, I guess, we're going to use some toner grays as well. So T5 for the darkest shade, that's going to go right around the edges of the fender, and then work inwards with some T3, and then leaving that center part pretty light with T1. And then for the lights, I just added a little BG10 there, and then some cool gray 5 around the edges. I did one version with the truck where the lights were yellow, and I didn't quite like that, so I thought maybe since it's a daytime theme, they can just look like they're off, so they would either be white or like a little, maybe tinged a little blue because of the sky. For the grill, I'm going to use my toner grays for the center, or the edges, and then for the center we're going to use cool gray 3, 5, and 7 are going to be the shades that we use here. And again, you can use any colors that you like for this. And if you want to follow along, just the thing to remember is wherever I'm putting my darkest shade, that's where you'll want to put your darkest shade. And then wherever I put my medium tone, that's where you'll want your medium tone for whatever color you're using. And then wherever I add the lightest is where you'll want to put your lightest. So for the little lights and the little reflectors on the truck, I'm going to color them in with YR12 and YR16. And then that little light on the bottom, I use some Y11. For the windshield, I want it to look like glass, so I'm just adding my color in on a diagonal using real pale shades like B52, BG10, B60, and then some B63. Just to make it look like there's some pretty light reflecting off that windshield. For our boxes, I'm going to color them in with a base of E42. And then for the shading, I'm going to put some C7 on the parts of the box that are open, or the insides of the box that we can see through to the front. I'll use that C7. And then E47 for our darkest shading on the boxes. And I'm pretty much following the lines on the digital stamp here to decide where I want to add my darkest shadows and contours. And then we're just going to build in towards the middle with an E44. And I'm going to work my way all the way to the inside with E43 and then back to E42. You could also use E30s for this, or E50s, or E70s. Lots of ideas for boxes. If you want them to be really, really bright and bold, you can use some E20s for the boxes. I'll show you what the E20s look like in a second when we color in the little grocer. For the bread, I'm going to give it a base of YR21 and then use YR24 and YR27 for the shading. Just doing real basic shading here, darkest around the edges, and then the lightest color will be in the center. And then some BG10 for the little plastic parts of the bread. And then our toilet paper is B52. And then some BG75 along the edges there to darken it up. And then some cool grays to add some shading on that white toilet paper. So C5 down to C1 and then down to some colorless blender just to blend everything out. And then just darkening up the little holes in the toilet paper with some C7. Just the darkest shade I'm using. And for our little milks, we're going to give them a red cap. So I used R24. And then to complete our rainbow, or start building our rainbow in the front, I thought our milk crate should be a yellow-green color, real bright, because so far that's one of the colors of the rainbow that I'm missing in the forefront of the scene. So we already have an orange, a blue, a red, and now a green for our little milk crate. So I'm using YG03 and YG17. And then just some little shadowing with BG10 on the inside of the milk carton. For our little grocer, he is holding some apples, some green apples, some red apples, and some golden delicious apples as well. So I colored those in different shades there, again, just to help with the rainbow theme. And then our little crate is going to be colored in with E23 for the base, and then some E25 and E27. And then the skin is E21 for the base, and then E13 for the contouring, and then we will blend it all inwards with some E11. I'll show you a different skin combination on the little delivery boy in front in a second. And I'm just adding the darkest shades around the hairline, by the chin, under the neck. And then for this little delivery boy, we're going to give him a base of E00 and then add some shading in with some E21. And then E11 for our darkest shading there, right around the hairline and the edge of the cheek and the little ear. And then for his hat, we're going to give it a base of B12 and then B16 for to contour the areas to make it look like it's kind of bending around his head. So I'm just following the little lines in the stamped image here to determine where to put my darkest shades and my lightest shades. So wherever there's a little line, I will add my darkest, and then I will build towards the center, getting lighter and lighter of each little piece there. And then for the clothing, again, base of B12, the shoes were C5 and C7. And then I'm going to add little folds of fabric with a B18. And like under the arm, wherever there'd be a little shadow, and then blend it all in with B14 and B12. And I forgot to do the little brim of his hat, so I will just fill that in now. And then for the hair, I use some Y23, Y26, and then some YR27 as well. I just love the combination of the yellow, orange, and the blue there. For our grocer, I'm just coloring in his apron with some BV00, 02, and 04. And then the pants with some yellow green, just like the same colors in the milk carton. And then a C7 for the shoes. I thought it'd be nice to have a little white shirt on him, so I just added a little bit of shading with a cool gray. And then for the hair, I'm going to use E23 to start for the base. And I'm just adding some little flicks following the lines and the stamp. And then I'm going to use E29 for my darkest shadowing. And I'm going to add just very, very little of the E29 here. The rule when you're doing hair is that your darkest color, you should have the fewest flicks, and then your lightest color, you should have the most flicks. And as you work your way from light to dark, you should kind of follow that same ratio. So fewer and fewer additions, the darker you go, and that'll give you a nice little real dimensional look for your hair if you follow that. Just adding some shadows underneath the boxes with my toner gray 4 here. And then I will blend it out with the T1 in a second. And then we'll just add the tire. So I'll just use some C5, C7, and C10 here for the black tire. Since it's all the way in the back, we don't really have to add that much shading. And then I'm going to peel off the painter's tape, and that is going to complete this first card. So here you have it. I think that this is just a great card for to leave for any of the people who are delivering groceries or other items to you now, especially if you leave a little gift card or some cash in there as well. Now let's move on to our second card. So for this one, we are going to build some grocery shelves behind our little characters. And to do it, I'm just going to take my ruler. So this panel is a little larger than an A2 size card base here. I think these guys I made 45% instead of 35% scale, so that's why they're a little larger. But it doesn't matter. I am going to just build in the little shelves now. So I started with my cool gray just because if I make a mistake, it was easiest to fix it with that. That's usually like my draft color that I use when I'm doing these backgrounds. And then once I know that I have the placement right, I'll go over with my darker colors that would be harder to erase. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just going to build in, we're going to have 3 little shelves for our groceries to sit on. And the key here, your bottom shelf, you just want to make sure that it is above the bottom of the cash register. Just because otherwise it'll look weird. It won't look like it just won't work. Like try it and you'll see what I mean. But it's got to be, that background needs to be higher on the page than the bottom of the cash register to make it look realistic. Now we're going to start adding the little items on our shelf. So we don't want to give too much detail. We just want it to look like in the background there's just some little bottles and little boxes kind of stacked up behind her. And I'm going to use rainbow colors for this. So to start, I guess those are little jars of, maybe it's like relish. And then next to it, we're going to make some little ketchup bottles. So it's just a rectangle with a tiny skinny little triangle on top. And I'm just gonna, you can draw these in however you like. You could start by making your rectangle first and then divide them at the end. Just whatever works best for you. The key here is you just want to give like the general a sense of whatever the shape is. So this is a really, really fun, relaxing project to work on because you don't really need to look at anything. Just make some shapes and, add a little bit of shading and you'll be fine. So now we'll make some mustard bottles. So I'm just drawing in the edges of each bottle. Then I'll add a little triangle on the top. And then I'll blend everything together with my Y15. I'm using about 2 colors per little product family here. And on this first one, I thought it just needed a little bit more definition. So just adding that in. And then I'll do the same with the white label. And now we're going to make some these turned out to be soda bottles. I don't know that I started off with the idea of making them soda bottles, but they kind of looked like that when I was done. So I was like, okay, I guess it's little bottles of soda. So I started with a little rectangle and then put a little half circle on top with some brown. And then I'm going to add another little rounded rectangle on the top and then add some little vertical lines kind of going up and down. And then it looks like a little bottle all the way back there. So I'm going to make another one. This one's going to end up being a little bit bigger than the first one, but that same technique, just a little rectangle with a half circle on top and then a little rounded rectangle above that to make the cap. And then I'm just going to add some shading and my little vertical lines to just make it look like it's a little cap, like those little ridges on a cap. Now we're going to make, not sure what this one is, so let's see. So I'm going to start with a square and then I'm going to add my little lines down the center. And then we're going to put a little label on the center in green. And I'm just making little ovals there. And then I'll just add my shading with the purple. So these kind of, maybe they're cereal boxes, maybe they're little cans of soup. I guess it could be lots of different things. The idea here is just, just have fun. You could even open up your own pantries and see what you have in there and to get some ideas for the different shapes and colors to make your own little items. For this one, I thought I was going to make another little set of soda bottles. So I started with my little rectangles on the bottom in pink and then my little half circle in brown on top. And then I'm like, they kind of look like maybe they're muffins or loaves of bread. So I was like, let's just leave that as is and not put a little cap on those 3, just so they look like maybe they're like little baked goods or something. So, again, the whole point here is just have fun with your little shapes and just kind of go where they lead you. Just start with like simple little rectangles and then add some shading and, maybe some labels and just have fun. So here we're going to make some little boxes again. And I'm going to add, I think, a blue label this time. Oh no, I guess a peachy label. This kind of reminds me of like maybe olive oil. I think I have some olive oil that has this kind of design on the bottom bottle. Now we're going to add some blue little boxes, color them in with a B91. And then add my shading. And the key here, when you're making your own little grocery shelves, you want to make sure you use some colors that are lighter than the colors that you're going to use in the forefront of the scene, because you really want them to kind of fade into the background and not be so detailed. Otherwise, it'll be like a little overwhelming to look at. So when you're thinking of this, think of how a photograph looks, where the images that are in the foreground of the photo are clear and in focus, and then everything behind it is a little bit blurry. So that's what you're going for with your little grocery shelves. Like, even if you can make them even with less detail than I have here, it'd probably look even better. So for these little boxes, we're going to make little cans or little cartons of tomato sauce here. So I'm going to start with my pink little boxes all lined up in a row, and then we're going to add a little tomato to the center of each of them. And then we'll just put a little green stem on top. And now we have our little row of little tomato sauces. Just finish up my shading there. And now for the bottom row, let's see, maybe we'll make like a big jar of mayonnaise or mustard. Not sure what that is. Just left a white label there by leaving that area clear. And then I put a big blue cap on this little bottle using that same method that I did for the soda. And then here I thought, let's try to make a little kind of glass jar of jelly. So I started with a violet color and then a nice violet cap. And then I thought, let's make like a picture of some little grapes on the center. And it didn't quite work out that well. So I just kind of filled it in a little bit more. And again, it's blurry. It's in the background. You can't really tell what's going on. So maybe it looks like it's a clear jar with some little grapes or jelly pieces floating around. And then to finish out our little grocery shelves, I'm just going to add these green little boxes on the side with a blue label. And then for our eggs, I'm going to color them in with some YR30 and then add some shading with Y32. And then for our little cashier, we're going to color in her skin with a base of E31. And just go all around with that E31. And then some BG10. I gave her a little eyeshadow there. And then for our contouring shade, we're going to use E35. And just go around the bridge of the nose there as well. And then fill inwards with some E55. And then I didn't quite like the way that looks, so I switched to my E34, which seems a little bit dark to me. And then I grabbed from my E33. So this is my first time, I think, doing a skin tone this dark, so I had to kind of play around to figure it out as I went along. And then I'm just going to fill that in with some E31, add a little bit of eyeshadow, and then add back in some little contouring under the hairline. And then we'll just color in the skin, some E35 and E31. And then for the hair, I'm going to start with E27, and I'm following the little markings that are in the stamp, and I'm making little like half little C shapes going in all different directions to kind of start to make it look like there's some little curls in her hair. And I'm going to be sure to leave a lot of white space so that I can fill that in with my lighter shades. And I think the trick here to making it look like they're curls is you do want to make sure that you leave some white space throughout just to help with the idea that they're little highlights and reflections coming up off the curls. And then I'm going to darken it up a little with some E49. And you want to use very little, like be very sparing with your darkest shades and just use it where you need the contour. So maybe only where you see the little lines in the stamp, follow them with your darkest shade. And then I'm going to go even a little darker and add just a tiny bit of little black half C's here and there just to help with the hair color. And then I'm going to blend everything together by adding some E25 little C's all throughout the hair. And that looks good to me. And then I realized we had to put some little boxes behind our cashier girl. So I thought we'd make them in R20. So some little peachy boxes. And then I'm going to put a little cap on top of each of them with a C1. And just add my shading in with the C5. And that looks good. So now our little grocery shelves are fully stocked. And I'm just going to add some shading along the edges of those little shelves, just with a little strip of R27. And then for our ground area, I'm going to color it all in with some E42. So I'm going to go all over the entire bottom of the page there. And then we can start working on the apron for our little cashier. So I use some BV00, some BV02, and then just blend that in. And then I thought it'd be nice for her to have a white shirt. So I'm just going to add a little bit of shading with the C3. And I add that same shading to her mask as well, the C3, and then blending it inwards with C0. For the cash register area, let's color that in with a base of C3. And then we'll add some shading in a second. But first we'll color the frame of it with some R39 and R12 and then R 29 as well. So it's a little brighter of a shade than the red shelves in the back. So I guess the supermarket's colors, it's like, it must be red and silver. Then let's just add some shading to the cash register itself with some C5, C3, and then we're going to add a strip of C7 right underneath that register just to make it look like there's a little ledge there hanging off. The cash register is going to be C3 and C5. And then we'll give the key section some YG61 and YG63. And then the little dollar bill there, I just colored in with some greens. And now we can move on to our little bread. So I'm going to color the base of the bread with E31, then give a little shadow with some E35, and then color in the little ridges with E41 on the bread. Just fill in that little area of floor I missed. And then for the little lettuce and the carrot top, I used some green G19 and G5. And then we'll make the carrot YR04 and YR09. Really pretty bright colors. And then the little cereal box there, B1214. And then the brown paper bag, we'll use some E31. I just wanted to make sure I had a color that distinguished it from the floor. So I used E40s for the floor. So then I thought we could use some of these like warm reddish browns for the little paper bag that's holding the groceries. These are also very similar to the colors that we use for the skin on the cashier. So it kind of matches the scene really well, I think. For our shopping cart, let's use some C3 for the base of the shopping cart and then C7 for the wheels. And then just add a little C5 shading on the cart. And then blend it in with the C3. For the shoes, we'll add some C5 and then some C7 for the contouring area. And then his little apron is going to be YG03 and YG17 for the darker shades, like under the arm, those little folds. And then we'll just blend it inwards with the YG03 and then YG01 in the very center. We'll give him some cute little blue jeans, so B91, B95. And then a little white shirt for our grocer as well. So I'm just adding some shading with my cool grays there, leaving the center white, blending inwards with the C00. And for the skin tone, we're going to use a base of E21. And then just fill in the whole entire face with that. And then we can add our shading in with E13, like under the hairline, the edges of the ear, the cheeks, the edge of the arm, the part of the arm that's peeking out from under the t-shirt. And then we'll blend it inwards with some E11. And then kind of blend everything together with that E21 base shade. For the hair, we're going to give him, I think it's kind of, he has a little bit of gray going on here. So we're going to start with C5 and just, again, following the little lines that are in the digital image. And C5 is going to be our midtone here. So I'm going to add a lot of it to the scene. And I flick from the root of the hair and then from the ends of the hair towards the middle so that you, if you start your hair on both ends and it meets in the middle, that's how you get that nice, pretty dimensional look and the little shine like in the center of the head a little bit. So I'm going to add my C7, which is one of my darker shades here. And then C10 is going to be our darkest color that we use. And I use that for the little underside of the cowlick. And then like the very tips of the hair, we'll add some C10 there. And then to the roots, a little bit, being pretty sparing with it. And then we're just going to add some C3 to blend things together a little bit. And then that looks good to me. So here we have it. So our little grocery store scene is finished. This is a great card for all those wonderful, caring, and courageous essential workers who are helping to keep our grocery stores open during these uncertain times. So Now I'll show you a couple of other versions of these cards that I've made using the delivery and quarantine digital stamps from the Greeting Farm. Here is a card that I made using the little delivery girl from the digital delivery stamp from the Greeting Farm, as well as the trunk digital stamp that has those little bags of grocery in the trunk of the car. And then next we have another little scene that I made using the delivery stamp set from the Greeting Farm. All I used was a delivery stamp set, and I got all these great little images from it. This one, I used the Quarantine Life stamp set from the Greeting Farm, as well as the Social Distancing Anya digital stamp to create this scene. And then here is the card that we made at the beginning of the video that we arranged all the little digital images and then colored them with Copic markers. And then here is our little grocery scene that we created today. So that's all I have for you today, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that these digital designs, give you some great ideas to make thank you and appreciation cards for all of the brave and caring essential workers that are helping to make our quarantine as safe as possible. Thanks so much, and I will see you again soon in another video.